Let's see. Medium Steve, did you see Jeet Hare's article criticizing Chapo? Got any hot takes? Personally, I say bend the knee, left is best. I say left is best more than bend the knee. I think bend the knee is a Chapo thing. Well, let me comment specifically. I did read Jeet Hare's piece, and before I get into the specifics, and I want to take it really narrowly, but we have an image that my buddy or my Twitter buddy Carl Behar tweeted, which is really funny. I don't know if this is up on screen now, but Jeet here talks about dominance politics in the article, and he says that the concept of dominance politics was fleshed out by Josh Marshall. And Carl Behar, I mean, it's very snarky, but he does rightly say 500 years after Machiavelli, 125 years after Nietzsche, and 40 years after Foucault, this line is hilarious. Nietzsche? Huh? This line is hilarious. The concept of dominance politics was fleshed out by Josh Marshall. And yes, that is pretty hilarious. I mean,
Just to be fair to Jeet, he's generally good on that sort of thing. But
yeah.
Anyway, go on.
I mean, but that's so I'll do the sort of, I mean, I'll actually be very Jeet here-like in my preamble to this, which is that I think I've had Jeet on this show. I actually have found I think Jeet and I probably, almost certainly after reading this, come from different parts of the political spectrum. I think he's a smart guy, and I think he's been, pretty astute about writing about right-wing politics. I think I saw that he actually caused a Joan Walsh meltdown a couple of weeks ago when he did a hashtag Bernie would have won thing. But there were a couple of things about this article that I really found just weak, and I guess that's my own form of dominance politics that I say that. But let me kind of spell this out. So the guys on Chapo basically said we can't have a coalition between the for real left, social democratic, actual progressive politics, and this kind of like amorphous center. I'll just say there can be an alliance between the Corbyn wing and the Macron ring. But now, because the center in modern American politics has been failing, we need to take the lead, right? Like, if you look at the polling, if you have a sense, and that's from an electoral standpoint, but also just like literally the problems that we face, everything from the need for serious universal health care to seriously addressing the legacies of, white supremacy to the defining issues of income inequality. We need robust, no bullshit universal programs. And if one side needs to come to the other, it's the center to the left. Now, they said it in a more entertaining way than that. They said they need to bend the knee, which is a Game of Thrones thing. Now, and they need to, like Jonathan Chait and that crew needs to come to us. We don't need to come to them. And, and politically, people need to go to Bernie. He doesn't need to go to them. Now, the first wave of response to this, and I didn't listen to the show when it first dropped, but I had to go back and listen to it because the first response was some type of implication that this was like some type of like blowjob comment, which is just inaccurate. That wasn't what they were saying. I don't know what takes place in Will Menaker's fantasy life, but I don't think he was articulating anything in that comment about like the board of directors of I don't know, like some progressive think tank literally getting on their knees. He was a Game of Thrones reference. People use that. It was wrong and disingenuous. And Jeet acknowledges that, but Jeet goes and sort of dismisses the sexism charge, which for that specific comment,
while dedicating the first third of the article to it, though. Anyway,
right. Exactly. So it's weird. Exactly. And I'll just sort of glide over that, but that's true. He does spill a lot of ink or a lot of bandwidth or whatever we're calling it in the digital era on something that he himself says is not accurate. And he puts some screenshots of some tweets up of people kind of accusing them of being a comment about sexual favors, which anybody listening to it's not even, it just isn't debatable. It just literally wasn't nonsense. What they were saying. It was complete and utter nonsense. So why you would spend that much time is questionable out of the gate. But then the thing that, then he says, look, you don't build a coalition with people by attacking them and shaming them And that leads to his sort of, couple of broader points that he makes about dominance politics and about power and about what politics is. But the first thing out of the gate is that people in the so-called, center or whatever we want to say, they have been bullying and shaming the progressive left for decades. I mean, I'll speak personally, and I say this as someone who never was dumb left and said, like everybody else did here, you got to vote for Hillary Clinton. Do you think I felt great about voting for a pro-Iraq invasion, anti-single payer, pro-welfare reform person who called, black, super predator comment making, prison expansion voting, pro-death penalty, Haitian neoliberal record, center-right, candidate? Do you think that I felt great about this? And do you think I also, in addition to that, appreciated when I made reasoned and obvious comments from the perspective of my politics, which are progressive, that I don't agree with center-right policies, and then it was somehow implied that I'm like sexist or something? I didn't appreciate that. I thought that was fucking nonsense.
Our knees were bended that whole campaign slightly.
Exactly. And the left's knees have been bended for decades. In the 1990s, before any of us were doing this, obviously, but if you go back into history, and I will be on the new show, look at the Third Way. Look at, basically Schroeder and Blair saying that the future of European social democracy is pro-lower taxes, pro-corporate. Even the sort of moderate French center-left Lionel Jospin couldn't deal with the neoliberalization of European social democracy. In the United States, the left needed to bend the knee to Bill Clinton while he signed just a vindictive welfare reform package, which was absolutely racialized, cruel to poor people, and has, in fact, is absolutely something that has been exacerbated, especially in the post-boom time since he left office. Backed corporate free trade agreements that we don't support, that didn't take into account labor and environmental standards, and telecom deregulation. The list goes on and on and on and on. So the notion that there is this sort of center, and then read any, Jonathan Chait column. When he's not writing a very good column about Republicans, he's either having some, meltdown about college free speech or, hyperventilating about, I don't know, some type of Maoist takeover because he doesn't like seeing Jacobin articles shared in his feed. I don't think that these people are polite or looking to build a coalition with the actual left. I think that they're relentlessly disingenuous and they're not in a position of power anymore, and that's unsettling to them. Okay? So I have a little bit, I believe it or not, I have some diplomat in my personality, and I do think part of politics is coalitions and, whatever. I want to demonize some people. I certainly don't want to demonize typical voters, but that's not what Chapo was doing. And anybody who implied that was also being disingenuous. The second point is that Jeet here says, as the follow-up to that point, that politics is about persuasion and coalition building. That's an assertion. He could be right, and I could be wrong. I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure I share this with the Chapo guys. Politics is about power. Politics is about who gets what, where, when, and why. And one of the sort of prime differentiators of this new resurgent, genuine progressive politics is that it is far more concerned about the just material outcomes of people versus tone, versus process, versus persuasion. And it actually is quite concerned with coalition building, but coalition building from the standpoint of agreed frameworks of solidarity, empathy, and shared interest for acquisition of power. So that's the second point. The third point is that, he basically then kind of retreats to, you can use these kind of tactics on the alt-right, but not on your, prospective Democratic allies. And I have to say, we're still not at a point where we're all on the same page. We'll get to this Israel story in a minute, but when Christian Gillibrand and other Democratic senators and congresspeople are co-sponsoring a bill that will literally criminalize people supporting BDS, And we're not all on the same page with single payer, and we're not all on the same page with policy in the Middle East. We're not there yet. There's things to hash out. So that's where I stand on it. And I think Jeet is going to need to come with much stronger ammunition at the next one. My friend Ari Paul, I didn't agree with everything he wrote either, but he wrote a piece in Sushant with a much more specific critique of Chapo, which I think was a lot more persuasive.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with all this. I'm team bend the knee as well with the Chapo guys. I just personally, I am not as big of a fan as they are as like the flame throwing on social media.
Right.
And I think I personally, just for my taste, I think they can get out a bit over their skis on that sort of thing. But I don't think it's something that should be dedicated time in the National Republic. Or the New Republic, right. I should say. And I think generally what they've done for sort of popularizing leftist ideas, I think is
they have done far more
good
to forward social justice than any number of people attacking them in terms of from a policy, advocating a policy standpoint. Also, Sam Chris had look, I want to say categorically that if anybody comes, like, there is no doubt that the Chapo guys and almost anybody I could think of in social media have participated in flame stuff on social media that I don't agree with, right? I'm sure. But I also noticed that, and Sam Chris has a great column about this, about how this notion that people being dirtbag or assholes on social media is somehow a specific left problem is entirely disingenuous. And we can have a conversation specifically about attacks, online harassment, whatever, and that's going to implicate everybody. This is not even remotely a left problem. And almost every sort of Clintonoid that I can think of employed exactly the same tactics that they accused the dirtbag left of. And then, let's also bear in mind that, like, the alt-right is still the king of this.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos